Hi, and welcome to the Thank God for the Beatles podcast. If this is your first time, welcome, and if you are returning, it's great to have you back. I'm Karen, and joining me today is my co-host, my brother Jeff.
Hi, everyone.
We love the Beatles, and we've been talking about them since we were kids, and that's been many, many years. So the beauty about being a Beatle fan is that there's always something new to learn, to listen to, or to read about, a new book that's been released, etc. And so this month we have a lot that's come to us as Beatle fans. We've seen the release of the Beatles' new and final single, Now and Then, and also the release of the 1970s compilation, the Red Album and the Blue Album. They're remixes, and we've been immersed in them for the past few days, few weeks. So Jeff and I, we've been chatting about the new releases at our family lunch and, over the phone. And we thought it'd be nice to share our thoughts on the specific songs. I have a cold, so excuse me. Before we begin, however, we want to kind of give the baseline for our discussion. For me, I listened to mostly the 2009 remasters of the Beatles catalog, in addition to the super deluxe editions of the later albums. And again, comparing these remixes to the 2009 remasters, it's not apples to apples, and there's no pun intended. But it's just, what do we enjoy? What do people enjoy? So you kind of have to find your lane of what you want to, listen to and to think about which version do you like better. So for the Red Album, we're just doing the Red Album today, and we are skipping the songs that were remastered for the 2022 Revolver Super Deluxe Edition. The other thing to mention is that there are so many remixes. There are so many changes throughout the catalog, the Love album, the number ones, and it's just, for me, it can be overwhelming. So I like to keep things simple. So this is where kind of the framework for our discussion today is. And then finally, God, it sounds like I'm doing a lecture, but I'm really not, is that we have a natural bias. And I believe it's due to our age. We've grown up with a certain idea of how the songs sound, whether they're on the turntable or in the car or in the stereo system, the big system in your den that you had, cassette, 8-track, CDs. We've kind of been through it all. However, I think it's important to be receptive to new technology and to allow this improvement in sound fidelity. And when it comes to remixing songs, there are times that I think, would someone go through and add a little more green to, a Van Gogh painting? Or do you just want them to preserve the painting so that it doesn't degrade over time? That's a different discussion other than today. So we're just going to take with what Giles Martin did for this Red Album, and then at the end we'll do Now and Then.
Excellent. Yeah, I look forward to this because I just spent the last couple of days going on iTunes and then just comparing side by side the 2009 remasters along with the 2023 remixes that we're going to discuss. And also I've had thoughts about the original Capitol records, because Karen just mentioned that we had grown up listening to differing versions, and the first versions I ever heard were the U.S. Capitol releases, which were all, like I say, lathered in reverb, but that's what my ears were accustomed to. Of course, things have changed since then, so I'll just bear that in mind that I might bring that into the discussion. But we just went track by track and just gave our thoughts on each one. And remember, this is just our opinion. Don't make any claims to be an expert, and neither am I a technical expert. I just know what I hear and listen very closely, and what I think is missing or what I think works and what doesn't work. And again, I don't discourage anyone from buying the album. In fact, I want you all to purchase a Beatles album if you haven't done so yet. It's all worthwhile. So these are just my little picky-uni thoughts on this.
Well, it's funny because I went and looked at my vinyl records, which I have hidden in a closet because I really don't listen to vinyl anymore. And I said, do I have the Red Album? And I don't. And I think, Jeffrey said the same thing. He doesn't have either version as well. And it's because we have every other album
Right.
in different versions or the CD version of it. So the Red and the Blue album, as everybody knows, it's an opportunity for people to get into the Beatles without having to spend a fortune on buying, everything to cover what they like.
I think it's designed just to be an introduction to the Beatles. If you're not familiar with the material, or you just like the more famous or well-known tracks, and you want to have them all in one collection, then those are the collections for you. And again, I encourage people to want to buy those. So what my comparisons were based upon the past masters or the masters from 2009 that were on the various Beatle album releases, and then compared those, not from the original Red and original Blue albums, mind you, from the masters, from the albums from which they came.
Yes, and those are remasters. I believe that they're not remixed.
Right.
So it's just improving the fidelity of the sounds for...
Right. There's a big difference, everyone, between remastering and remixing. I don't think we ever went over that.
I'm sure that they know.
I'm sure you all know, so I'm not
sure
going
that they know.
Not going to belabor the point.
And the only other thing to add, which I would imagine if you're listening to this that you already know, is that this is as a result of Peter Jackson's technology, which allows Giles Martin to extract each track so that they can...
Each instrument, each voice.
Correct, and to put it and to reshape it. Okay, Jeff, why don't you start?
All right. Well, let's just go down the list of the 2023 remixes. The first track, Love Me Do. I think the mix itself is fine. I think the Please Me album version...
Hold on. I just want to hear what you think. Let's compare it against the 2023 to 2009. What are your thoughts on each one? I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I'm just going about that. First of all, I don't like this version of the song at all. I preferred the one that appeared on the original album version. That was
not even the 2009.
No, not even that one, because the 2009 Past Masters and this one, I don't like. I just think Paul's vocal on this one is weak. And they should have remixed the album version instead. And the original album version was it with the Beatles, or I think it was before that? Or Please Please Me. The original album where it was released from Britain, that was the best version. It was more of a double track lead vocal, and this is distinctly different.
I don't know if they have the source tapes.
No, they don't
for that. But and again, you're introducing that you've gone to the original things. I'm just doing 2009. I'm not talking about the earlier things.
But I'm going there because I'm just saying I don't like the track. So let's skip on to the next one.
Hold on. Let me do my turn.
Oh, okay.
Let's do it by song. You
we're gonna take turns.
Good God.
Okay,
Older
go ahead.
brothers.
Go ahead, honey.
Okay. Oh, don't say honey.
Go ahead, hon.
Well, the 2023 mix of Love Me Do, I'm fine with it. And I'll probably listen to it. The only thing, and it's because I do have a Hofner bass, a vintage Hofner bass, is that sometimes the bass sounds like the intonation is off. And I get stuck on that. But generally speaking, I could listen to either one. I'm fine with either one.
Yeah.
Okay, please me. I'll go.
You go first.
Okay. So the new one, the vocals are centered, which we see mostly in this mix. It's a nice, bright mix. I like it. The bass is more present. I would give it a thumbs up over the 2009. The bass is kind of below in the 2009 version, and George's vocal feels low, so I like the new one.
I have to agree there. I think it's a great version. I think the guitar in the left channel really drives. The centered vocals are crisp, bass and drums properly proportioned and clear. And the only change I dislike is the closing. There's an ooh that was cut from the ending, or you couldn't hear it. It was buried, whereas in the 2009 version and Capitol Records version, you can hear them. But other than that, I love it. It's great. It really works for me.
Yes, and we may be ultra picky, and we don't mean to be, but that's just in critical listening. We're taking notes.
Right.
And that's why I want to do my thumbs up of which one I probably would listen to. So I Saw Her Standing There. For the most recent mix of 2023, to me, the claps sound a little lower in the mix. And by the way, I really didn't have an idea of how often claps were used in these songs on this album. I mean, so much. The vocals are great. The guitars are clean. You can hear everything. I would think I would give this version the thumbs up. Although, credit to the 2009 remaster, it's an amazing mix. The drums seem trebly, blends well. The rhythm guitars feel below the mix.
Well, the 2009 version for me was far superior. And the reason is that the hand claps on the left channel were prevalent. The guitars and drums have bite. The song just crackles. And the new I Saw Her Standing There and the hand claps are panned right. Like you said, they alluded to, they're barely audible. They kind of isolated George's guitar on the left channel with some extras. Sound like to me they were kind of clunky sections, and that was a mistake. I think it weakens the groove a bit. So I prefer the 2009 version.
And just as a heads up, I listen to all the music through my headphones, which is how I listen to everything now. And you listen to it with what speakers?
Right, listen with speakers, that's correct.
Okay, so we're going to have a different experience.
Okay.
Twist and Shout, sounds great, thumbs up.
I say Twist and Shout, not a bad remix at all. The guitars are prominent, drums are clear, centering the vocals. I think it diminishes John's desperate lead vocal just a little bit. I think it was better left alone, frankly. I like the 2009 mix because the vocals are panned to the right and the song just drives more. It has the primitive recording of that, I think, adds to its power. Modernizing it, I mean, it's listenable, but it's just not my personal preference.
I think there's some energy that transferred over.
Yeah, okay.
I
can argue that. I probably have to listen to it again.
So for From Me to You, I like the guitars. Pan right, I think it's an improvement. I would give it a thumbs up. I found that the 2009 remaster, it was very trebly to my ear, and the harmonica was quite loud.
Mm-hmm. I have to agree there because this new version of For Me to You, this version with the centered voices and more detailed guitars actually helps the song and definitely a welcome improvement. I thought that the 2009 remaster has the voices are almost too prominent and the accompaniment on the left and the overall stereo effect for that song sounded very basic and sounded too artificial to my ear. So I think that it improved the song immensely with the new remix. I'm thumbs up for that.
So then She Loves You, and I think that this is one where we're not quite certain of the source material, that they don't have like the original of this. I'm not certain of that, so if someone knows, you can let us know. I like it. I seem to focus, however, on the rhythm guitar in my right ear, and maybe that's not such a good thing. Maybe I should think about the whole song. I love the remasters too. I don't have a winner here. I think either one. What do you think about this, Jeff?
For the remix, for me personally, it's a pass. For that particular song, I think that the 2009 remaster, that was in mono, and although that version is better than any stereo mix I've heard, the one from Capitol Records with the artificial lathering of reverb gave it that concert hall performance feel, and that's really missing from the new remix. I think it was once was gleaming and bright is now somehow ordinary, and I think removing the reverb on the new remix just detracts from that feel, which made it larger than life. So I'll stick with the older one on that particular song.
So for I Want to Hold Your Hand, the thing that I think I had to get used to listening to this album is the bringing up Ringo's drums, which is great because he is a super drummer. However, sometimes it can be to the detriment. And here, when I'm listening to this, I'm really hearing the kick drum. I mean, it's just like I get stuck on that. I think the claps are at the right level. I would give it a thumbs up. For me, for the notes for the 2009 remaster, the arpeggio was pretty clear on the right, the guitar arpeggio. Mm-hmm. Lots of little sounds that work well because they're not that isolated. So, it's I think I'm getting used to hearing all the additional sounds added. Maybe that's it.
I think that must be it. I thought Giles did an excellent job remixing this. He stayed true to the balances with much clearer detail without affecting the raw energy and drive of the original. And that's the impact that matters most. Now, of course, the Capitol Records version is the most powerful for me. And 2009 version is good too. George Martin reduced the Capitol's reverb, and the song still retained its punch. So it works.
I don't think it was George Martin. I think it was two other guys who did the 2009 remasters.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, well, I said corrected then. But whoever did that, I still think that the remix does it justice. So it's fine.
Okay, this boy. So when I'm listening to the new version, I'm really keyed in on the hi-hats. And I can hear, it's just like I'm in the room with Ringo listening to how he's playing everything. To me, it sounds more dynamic than the 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. There seems to be, is there more reverb on the 2009? I don't know. I mean, it's so, again, we're being ultra picky here.
Well, the vocals are panned like center right on 2009. And it's fine. I think it's very good. But I do think that the new remix, I love this remix. It loses nothing and gains in all the subtle details. For instance, the acoustic guitar in the left channel was almost previously imperceptible, some of the detail there. So I thought it really added. The new mix is wonderful. I love it. So that's my preferred version.
So we both like that one.
Oh, yeah.
So for All My Loving, again, I don't have a winner in this category. The drums for me, the first thing when I heard this is I was so, again, I'm like a one-note band here. But it's the tut-tut of the snare. It's just constantly like that's all I'm hearing. And it's like detracting from the rolling bass line, all the other good things that happen on this song. So I just feel that for me, something is lost. I prefer the 2009 remaster.
Actually, I have to disagree a little bit here. I think the 2009 remaster is strong, but I actually prefer the remix, and here's why. The guitars, bass, and drums for me were more detailed. I think they really pop. It doesn't distract me. I think the centered vocals also work great here. I mean, I think you need both to balance it out. So I say good job, Giles. Great version.
Okay, so Roll Over Beethoven, sung by George. The 2023 version, the bass is more up in the mix. The claps maintain their drive, and I think the rhythm guitar on the right is great. I give this version a thumbs up. The remaster one, it sounds like the bass is buried a bit. The drums are kind of below as well, so I like it. I think it's rocking.
Not so in my estimation. Maybe I could listen to it again. I think that the 2009 remaster retains most of the punchy rhythmic qualities. For me, again, for this particular song, when it's like a rocker like this one from the older sets, it's Capitol Records louder than reverb with the concert hall vibe. That is like a concert hall rock and roll song. And, on Roll Over Beethoven's remix, there's a nice guitar setting, but where are Ringo's hissing cymbals that I'm used to hearing? Those double track vocals from George need the reverb too. Centering them doesn't really work as well here. I think I call this a classic rocker turned to ice cream, so I'm passing on that one. I'm going to go with the original.
Okay. You Really Got a Hold on Me, which is just one of the greatest songs ever that they've given to us. And I just think that the new version, the 2023, is even more fantastic. And this will definitively be my go-to version. I just love it, love it, love it.
Absolutely. Now here, I think the remix definitely wins, hands down. The details add instead of detract. The centered voices fit the song. The improved quality, the rhythm section drives the track. Now, 2009 was fine. It was just the sound I was used to, but this one really got a hold on me. Literally, sonically, I thought it was just great. So
we agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so for Can't Buy Me Love, and listening to both, I do like the newer version. I think that, again, the presence of the drums, and once you get past everything kind of being isolated and brought together. I'm just getting used to listening to that, and it sounds it sounds like a contemporary song.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like the technology is appropriate.
Yeah, it really drives, I think. The remix wins in my book. The fidelity's improved. Nothing is lost. It's now my favorite version.
Another great tune. You Can't Do That. And my favorite version, I think, is on Anthology. I really like listening to it beginning, but for this comparison, this is fantastic. It's everything is just right. Is there maybe a little less cowbell in this? I don't know. Splitting hairs.
Well,
I just think it's amazing. I think this one is.
You really like it?
I do.
Well, here's some details that I noticed right away. The bass and the drums are noticeably more pronounced. The cowbell is reduced. The guitars are less prominent except during the solo. And I think still the track works fine and it sounds great to me. The 2009 remaster was my least favorite. So I think that this one is definitely a winner.
Okay, so then we've got A Hard Day's Night. So my comments and my thoughts on the 2023 is that opening chord, I don't know. It sounds like it's so loud, it's like jolted me.
It's supposed to, isn't it?
But I mean, like really loud.
Okay.
And the Jeffrey and I both came to this, and I was like, when I first was telling him when I listened to it, I said, the bongos.
Right.
It's just too much bongos now. And the only reference I'm going to make is that I think in the early 1970s, maybe 70 or 71, there's a guy named Dennis Coffey, and he had a song called Scorpio. It's a instrumental, and it's wild. It's a great song, but the bongos are, they're meant to be heard in that song. Really, they're the focus of the song. And here, I'm just, again, I get, maybe it's just me, I just perseverate on one part of the song, but I don't know which one I like better because the bass on the 2009 remaster is a little muddy. And it's a little bit low. I feel that the 12 string is low. So to be frank, I'll probably just listen to this version.
I'm gonna have to disagree here. I think the 2000 remaster jams. Yes, the bongos are there, but if you listen to the right channel, it's closely. It's blended in. Now, on the remix, it's a great mix, except for one thing. It's A Hard Day's Night at the Copacabana. Too much bongos, and like you, it ruins it for me. So I'm going to go with the 2009 remaster. I think that one works well enough.
Okay, fair enough. So for And I Love Her, thumbs up.
Oh, wow.
The vocal is gorgeous. The classical guitar, it sounds like the claves are a little bit lower in the mix. To be honest, though, my favorite version, if ever I could find it, is the German Something New album. Because the And I Love Her song has a single tracked voice, and that version, I hear it on the Sirius XM Beatles channel occasionally. But
really?
That's amazing. And then the album on eBay is way expensive. But
sure.
Both versions are great. This version is amazing.
I think that although the 2009 remaster is a classic, 2023, the technology gave the remix the advantage for enhancing the ballad. I think that it's lovely, detailed, guitars and vocals clean, perfectly balanced, best version out there. So it's a winner.
Okay, so for 8 days a week, as we're getting later in the Beatles catalog, becoming maybe a little more complex in how they're doing things, what I wrote down is that the drums and the bass hit hard in the opening is at a detriment. I don't know. And you can really hear Ringo's fills in this. It's crisp. Mm-hmm. But there's something weird that happens at about the 1 minute, 15 second, I think. And I don't know if it's a sync issue with the drum, but it's just something like caught me and I'm like, what was that? And I think that I would go to the 2009 remaster.
I think that remaster 2009 is about as perfect as I can hear it. I think that now 8 days a week, I think the remix generally is very good. It's close to the original, and the hand claps are less prominent, but the drums and guitars definitely have more definition, as you alluded to. But I think the vocals are also a tiny shade lower in volume than before. It's enjoyable, but it doesn't beat the 2009 remaster.
Okay. Well, again, am I gonna create a playlist with my favorite ones? Probably not. I'm gonna probably just put it on, and
Yep.
when I want to hear it, just listen to the most recent version, as we typically do.
Right.
So for "I Feel Fine," I like the drums; they're centered, clearly integral to the song. Along with the riff, sounds trebly with the cymbals, as I think many people have alluded to. I don't have a winner in this. I mean, I could listen to either one.
I think that the remix is clear, the bass is improved, everything is on point, except the drum toms are a bit too noticeable for my taste. It's almost perfect. I think that the 2009 remaster, Past Masters Volume 1, is perfect. Capitol's reverb was excessive on that, and I think whoever worked on that remaster tweaked it just right. So I'm going to go with the 2009 remaster on that one, but it's very, very close. I mean, I can still listen to the new one as well.
Okay, so "Ticket to Ride," which is another, to me, it's what Ringo's drumming brings to it makes it so unique. And I think it's well balanced. I think it's a great version. I think it carries over the vibrancy that I need in order to enjoy it. And the same is true for the 2009 version. There's strong drums on the left. I love that version. I like both of them. I'm going to give the edge to the 2023.
I'm going to give the edge to the 2009 remaster. I think that's exactly the way it should sound. It's my go-to. The 2023 remix is good. The only issue I have with it is that by centering the vocals, Ringo's drums are pushed slightly more into the background, taking away the subtle bite that those lyrics suggest. And I think fans will like it, but it doesn't quite have the drive of the 2009 version, in my opinion.
Okay. So for "Yesterday," just absolutely beautiful. The improvement on the guitar, and particularly the articulation of what you hear. I don't know if there is less reverb. I'm not quite. I just don't know. I'd be curious what other people think. I think it comes up on the "Something's Wrong" line where there's some reverb added. I mean, I don't know. I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's a clear improvement over the 2009.
Absolutely agree there. 2009 is excellent and one I was used to, but in this case, the remix actually improved on it. I think that gorgeous. The strings are more separated out, panned left and right. Paul's vocals are centered and out front. It's just a beautiful version, dare I say, a definitive version. Very good job on that one.
So we're coming to "Help." My first impression of "Help" is that snare is really present in the mix, and I'm not feeling it because I feel that I'm distracted. Again, I get distracted by the drums in many of these songs, and I feel like I can't focus on John's vocal. I think that the 2009 remaster, my notes are like balls out great, dynamic, high energy, hissy cymbals, bass sits where it should. I give the thumbs up to the 2009.
Me too. 2009 remaster definitely hits the spot. For me, the remix has John's lead slightly more out front, but the background vocals are slightly less present. So it's good. It's just not my preference.
Okay. So then we have a great acoustic song, an amazing song, "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away." I think this sounds great. I think it sounds well balanced. The tambourine is not too in your face, which might be a negative for others. And I think it's the one I would choose.
I think the 2009 remaster remains the definitive version. 2023 is good, but it's imperfect. The vocals, guitars are clearer and sharper, and my only complaint is that the tambourine in the right channel is more subdued, and it seems like it is brought up in the second half and then fades again. So it distracted me that it wasn't there. If you watch the film, it's also prominent there, and it needs to be there. Just my opinion on that.
Okay, fair enough. Again, everyone's going to find their own path to their favorite Beatle versions because there are so many. And by the way, when I went to Barnes & Noble and I saw the Red Album for sale and the vinyl, there are three albums in it. It was $76. So, when you've grown up buying records for $2.99 or $3 and
or $5,
I'm like, oh my gosh!
Oh my Lord!
Okay, so we can work it out. For me, the new mix, drums are a little too loud. It detracts from the song for me. I still like it. I'll probably end up listening to this one. I just thought that the 2009 just framed Paul's vocal better.
I have to agree for just slightly different reasons. The 2009 remaster remains the best version. I think that Paul's voice panned right with the harmonium, and the rest was panned left. Just felt more natural to me. Now, in this remix, Paul's vocals are centered, and so are Ringo's drums. And while the bass and drums have more definition, I think the vocal impact is slightly weakened. So the harmonium is panned right, and there's nothing inherently wrong with the 2023 mix. It's just not my preference.
Okay. Day Tripper, hot mess. The new one is a hot mess. Guitars are mixed harshly. I prefer the 2009 remaster for everything that went into that, into actually building up that crescendo in the song.
Okay, my opinion on that, this one's a toss-up. The 2009 remaster still holds up. The vocals are panned to the right and the track rocks. However, I think the Day Tripper remix is a strong remix. Everything has more presence. I love the guitars, the bass, the drums. I would have raised the vocals just a tad to it being centered. Still, it really rocks. And I think, again, I could take either version and enjoy it.
Okay, Drive My Car. Sounds harsh to me, very trebly. I think I just prefer the balance and where everything sits in the 2009 master, and then the tamperine's not too loud as well.
Well, I do think the 2009 remaster is great, but I have to admit that remix is really better. The remix so far is the best rock song in the collection. Everything is actually improved, in my opinion. The choices are accurate and reveal details like a sharper piano without sacrificing the feel or quality, and it totally rocks. I love it.
Okay.
It's a winner for me.
Norwegian bird. Norwegian bird.
Wood.
Norwegian bird. This bird has flown.
Yes.
For me, when I listened to it, the bass came in hot. It came in quite loud, and it jolted me. I think it's a little too loud for my liking. The vocals sound nice. Some of the percussive sounds are strong in this mix. I just like how everything was done in the 2009 remaster.
Now, I think that, again, the remaster is great for 2009, but I was more impressed with the quality of the remix. I think the 2023 remix, it just wins on every level, because here the vocal pan center works. The bass is slightly more pronounced, yes, as you mentioned, but I think it's improved. And the sitar is clearer. The guitars are solid. I think this is a new definitive version. So I prefer the new remix.
I will listen to it again. And then Nowhere Man. I feel like everything in this newer mix, that it's competing to be heard. Like all the different instruments, I feel that there's less cohesion. The bass is up there in the mix. I mean, not such a bad thing, but I just prefer the original. The intro sounded right. This one sounded a little bit different with kind of the phasing or the reverb. I don't know. What do you think?
I have to say, I was listening. You mentioned that to me before on the phone, and I listened for that, and I didn't really notice any real phasing or any real difference there in the beginning. It's not a significant, factor in the vocals. I think it sounds almost identical. As much as I love that remaster, 2009, the beautiful vocals always did overwhelm the rest. I think Giles fixed that in the remix successfully. Every detail is more present without being imbalanced or overwhelming. I loved it. So that's 2023 is my go-to now.
Okay. Michelle, I would probably listen to the 2023. Thumbs up. Just an improvement in, I think, Paul's voice and the clarity.
Yeah, for me, Michelle is kind of a toss-up. I think the centered lead and backing vocals are effective. The bass is improved. The acoustic guitars are warmer. This version works just as well as the 2000 master, but on its own terms. I think that the 2009 remaster is lovely, and the separation is more obvious with lead vocal pan right, backing vocals pan left. But I could take either one. I mean, they're both really wonderful. So, well done.
In My Life, which is such a huge song in the Beatles' legacy. I like this version. Maybe, I mean, again, I can't believe how ultra picky, but we're just doing it as critical listening
Right.
for this, and then we'll never talk about it again. But
Right.
the piano break to me sounds a little brittle.
Oh, my Lord. I think the 2009 remaster is lovely and endearing, but I think that remaster sounds a bit more dated than other tracks. So I think that the 2023 remix actually surpasses the remaster. I think the lead guitar is panned right instead of left. The vocals are centered, as is the piano solo. The bass and drums are improved without being imbalanced. And this was risky business remixing this classic, but I think Giles pulled it off. I didn't hear anything brittle about the piano at all. I thought it was just perfect.
Well, what's interesting? It's how we listen to it. Like what I'm listening on my MacBook with some very good headphones, and other people listening through speakers. Some people listen to it on the car. So it's all going to be, it's so subjective.
Right. What medium are you using to listen to it?
Exactly. So
right.
what may be trebly to me might not be trebly to somebody else.
Nope.
So rounding out the album here of the ones that we're covering for today. If I Needed Someone, George's song, the bass is more prominent. It seems like the guitars on the left are higher in the mix, and the drums are nice. I would give this version a thumbs up over the 2009. It was more of a muddier bass in that version, but I do like it.
Yeah, me too. I have to agree with you here. The remix improves the bass, the drums, and the Byrds-like guitars, centers the vocals without sacrificing the balance. It just works. And now, I do not dissing the 2009 remaster. It's a great version, but Giles really did a great job with this one.
And then the final song that we will talk about is Girl. Always a fun song to listen to. I think John's voice sounds terrific. I like the harmony vocals. I think they're mixed appropriately. I would give this version a thumbs up. I just really like it.
Okay, I have a different feeling about this. It's okay, the remaster. I mean, the remix is okay. It doesn't move me as much as the 2009. The guitars aren't as sharp. The EQ'd a bit duller, and the centered vocals I don't think work as well here. And here's the reason. The voice is panned right on this song, forces you to focus on John's voice and the lyrics and the story he tells. Then the guitars are perfectly balanced on the 2009 remaster, so I still think that is the definitive version. The new remix is listenable, but for some reason it just didn't move me the same way. Just my feeling on it.
What would be interesting would be to come back in 6 months and to listen to it again and to see where we fall. I mean, we wouldn't do another podcast, but I'm just curious in our own discussions, how are we going to feel? You told me, though, that you don't really listen to the early Beatles stuff that much. I do, all the time.
Not as much, not as I used to, because I'm just so used to hearing them done all the time, right, and performing them myself. And as much as I love them, I've heard them so many times in my history that I have to be able to really sit down and really, really listen to the details. And that's what I did these last few days. And it was great to go back to it and see what am I actually hearing and hearing the differences between them. And there are some subtle differences and then pronounced differences. And I'm just kind of go with my gut and my emotion and not just what I'm used to, but what is actually an improvement. And improvement is whether the track comes more alive and has emotional and impact on you. Okay, the recording can be just great, and the technical aspect can be just wonderful. But does it really drive the track, or does the more primitive version, or the version with less technical, sonic quality somehow convey the emotion better? It's just like comparing digital CDs to the warmth of vinyl. It's just a matter of preference. I think that, for instance, vinyl does sound warmer in spite of its flaws. So there are differences of opinion on how that is. And I think it's just a subtle thing, and you have to listen to it from your gut, from your heart, and not just what they accomplished in the remix. Now, if I hear the remix and it's done so well that it just moves you either way, then it works for me. And if any other circumstance for those that have not been exposed to this material, enjoy it. Enjoy all of it. I still would enjoy all of it, and probably you ask me in 3 months, I'll probably get used to it and prefer to listen to the new versions anyway, just because you get used to hearing it.
Well, I think Giles Martin did a great job with this Red Album, and I don't know where they're headed to, but it's nice to hear some of the earlier stuff. I would love to see a super deluxe edition for Rubber Soul. The part of the super deluxe editions that I like the most really are the outtakes. And so, like, Jeff and I never did a podcast for the Revolver super deluxe because it didn't feel, I don't know what it was. We just didn't feel it. Just weren't compelled to talk about it. It was a couple nice nuggets in there, but, you know, I love the Paperback Writer, but I'll be curious to see what happens in that. And
I enjoyed it.
I know that Giles Martin talked about he wanted to, you know, not so much of the technology, which the technology was instrumental in allowing them to isolate the instruments and the vocals, but it's the gist or the feeling of the song of what sounds right. So well done.
Right.
So tagging along on that, which is the success of the Now and Then, which is being framed as the last Beatles single, the ending bookend of the Beatles catalog. And some may take issue with that because George and John were not here. But when I first listened to it, I didn't download it, I just watched it on YouTube. I mean, I'm like crying. I've heard this song. I've heard it way back when, the demo. Jeff and I were talking about Apple Jam's version, which is a tribute band that from 2000, I want to say 15 maybe, or maybe it was 2018, years ago. And they put together this incredible version of the song.
They did a great job. Yeah.
And so we already kind of know the song, and I would recommend that people read Giles Martin's interview with Variety magazine. It was on November 2nd, and I think the journalist is Chris Wellman or Chris something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very informative, and I think it answers a lot of questions that we might have, which is Paul brought him this and had done most of it, but wanted Giles to help produce it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, I think that for me, and this is how I framed this discussion, I think it's a technical and emotional triumph, overcoming adverse beginnings and conditions. It's not a triumph of songwriting, and I don't think it was intended to be. John had this on the shelf and didn't include it on his first 2 planned releases. He probably was in the midst of writing or rewriting it. But what he did leave there was something that it left for others to make something of it, like you mentioned, Apple Jam. And when Paul was really serious about wanting to get that done, the Beatles, as we know, if we watched the varying videos about it, did their best to try to work out, but they couldn't isolate them
during the anthology
sessions, and they couldn't, and they made an attempt, and then they just pretty much gave up on it and put it on the shelf.
And they gave up because they couldn't isolate the piano from John's voice.
Right.
It was too messy.
Right. And then, of course, with Peter Jackson's new technology and what he accomplished with the Get Back documentary, it was amazing. So now that you could, for me, hearing John's voice was a very emotional experience in that context. So it's not a triumph of songwriting. It's a very simple and direct style that John was going for. It's not an I Am the Walrus or Across the Universe or Hey Bulldog or Julia or any of the other classic ones we're used to. So, and then most of you fans out there, I'm sure are aware of the original demo and have heard the demo. It's been all over the internet. And so that shouldn't be a surprise to the fans. I think what is surprising is how beautifully Paul and Giles and Ringo handled this. John's voice, his emotional voice, just pierces through. The arrangement is lovely. It's inventive. It's not on par with his best writing. It's sincere. It's directly emotional and appeal. And I think it's a fitting ending and a coda to the Beatles' story and takes on a new meaning. It fits the living band members' own need to pay tribute to their lost friends, but also fulfills you and me, the fans, our need to hear them play and sing together on a recording one last time, because all four are on the recording. So yes, other cover bands have done inventive things with the song, and I welcome that, but it's far more powerful when John's best friends support him. So plus, as deceptively simple as the song is, it is an earworm. It begs repeated listenings and in those listenings, we scour all the details, just like we do with the rest of their catalog. It's a farewell song whose title takes on the meaning of who they were then and who they are now. And I think the accompanying video, I think you were going to talk about that too.
Well, before we get to that, in this interview, and I strongly encourage you to read this interview with Giles, which is Paul was very sincere in particularly like when they were working on the strings, of being sympathetic, of asking Giles to isolate George's guitar. We want to be empathetic to what he did, which is we want to listen carefully. He didn't want to overdo things to make it corny. He didn't want to, make it a Paul McCartney and Friends piece. And so I think that he was, in his way, is very protective of working on this song. The only thing that I would say is that Ringo's drum sounds very modern. They really have a lot of, for me, reverb. I would have maybe made them more Abbey Road-ish. But again, it's a sign of the times. And I think that what Giles had said is that Paul wanted a chance to work with John again.
Sure.
So imagine if we're all crying watching these videos.
Right.
Imagine Paul, how does he keep it together?
We weren't in the studio when that happened. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that. Although you mentioned Abbey Road, there is a dash of the harmony vocals from Because that are sampled and layered. I think it's sampled, or is it just layered?
He didn't say. They pulled other things because
Right.
the question is this AI or is it, what are you doing here? And it's like,
No, it's not
they're
AI.
not creating new. They're taking existing, kind of like what he did with Love.
Right. They took some of that and
And-
layered it in some of the background and orchestral parts and the instrumental parts where Paul plays that beautiful slide guitar solo as a tribute to George. Although George's rhythmic, let's not de-emphasize George here. He did play on the 1994 recording, and that was preserved, thankfully. So he played some electric and acoustic guitar on that, and you can hear his rhythmic playing in it. And also they took the speed of the song and took it up of just a slightly faster meter. And it's about taking a sad song and making it better. And that's what Paul, I think, and Ringo, that's what they do best. And he also, there was another section of the song that, for those that are familiar with the demo, there's the verse, and then there's like a pre-chorus section.
The I don't want to lose you, I don't want to abuse you. Yeah,
right.
piece.
And then they felt it would detract from the song. Now, while I've heard others say that might make it more interesting, it wouldn't have been as big of a hit. I think that he was going for making the song as emotionally impactful and accessible to everyone. And I think that that's where they succeeded. So they did a bit of his own songwriting editing decision, which is a prerogative to do.
And he did a slide solo, and Giles Martin was asked if that was a tribute, and it's like, no, we just felt it was right for the song.
Right.
And the behind the scenes video is very touching. It's pretty funny, and I love seeing George in his man bun back then.
Right, he has man
and
bun.
their ubiquitous teacups, always drinking tea. Paul, always drinking tea.
They're always drinking tea, and they look like they were very focused and enjoying each other's company, which is not a sight that you're used to thinking about. The friendship came out, and they really did make a sincere attempt before George gave up because it was technically impossible to finish it.
And I
back
think
then.
that Jeff Lynne was in there too.
And Jeff Lynne was in there, yeah.
Interesting. So he was close to
Well, because he's a friend of George and
friend of
produced
George. That's right.
And
So the behind the scenes video was very touching. Again,
very much
crying. I can't even watch it because it's so emotional.
right.
Then the video, Peter Jackson, I think, did the video,
Right.
and the dancing from "Hello Goodbye" and the
what could he?
John,
Poor man had to be tasked with this. So it's like, imagine if you were the one that was asked to do this video.
I don't know what I'm thinking about that.
Man.
The dancing. What do you think of that?
I think it's actually very funny. I think there's some parts of it where, John had a great sense of humor, and that was from the Hello Goodbye video. And he sampled, I guess, visually, John, and even John doing a little bit of the strings, and George, mugging and for the camera, and Paul himself too at some point.
Yes, the crazy ass dancing.
Right. And they stuck that in there just to lighten it up a bit, just to remind you who these guys are or were. And I think having them in there, I think that it's their way of saying, this was us back then and this is us surviving now. And and it's fun for them. I mean, recording it, it's a joyful thing. I think we wanted to add a little bit of humor to it. And in a way that almost makes you want to cry more because, you miss that. You miss that quality. And I think that he did a very artful job and selecting, and very tasteful and artful job in picking that. And then when it goes towards the end, oh my gosh, that video, when they start taking away elements and they regress back into their each individual Beatle into their childhood.
Oh my God, I know.
Going backward in time, literally pulling you backward. And then you see the classic for 1964 black and white Beatles with the signed Beatles behind them in neon. And then they take their final bow, and then all
just
four
the
of
instruments,
them,
yes.
And then it's just the instruments. All four of them just vanish, disappear like ghosts, and then it's just the empty stage. It's just, I lose it then. I mean, it is a saying, a way. If the song is appropriate in the way of saying thank you and goodbye, I think that's where that comes from for me.
And let's face it, Ringo's going to be 84 next summer.
Oh.
Paul's going to be 82.
Yeah.
And they're amazing. They're amazing with their concerts and the time that they do it and the love that they have for this music.
Sure.
But as I was telling Jeffrey, I said, I hope that at some point, I wish that we all could have access to the 50 hours of tape of Get Back.
I have a feeling that this isn't the end. I mean, there's so much other footage that's out there.
I really wish we could. That's where I would pay a lot of money to be able to access it on my own time frame to watch the stuff. And maybe they're unpleasant. I mean, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But there's also, they mentioned something about the cavern, cavern footage and recordings, and imagine what Peter Jackson could do with that stuff. So that there's probably some other projects that I would hope will come out if they wanted to. And there won't be any new Beatles songs per se. And there was plenty of demos of John's that are out there of songs they chose not to record or that Yoko didn't give them that would have been good Lennon songs. Maybe they could have worked on those, but that just would be redundant. And they would end up being sidemen again for John. I don't think they wanted that. I think that this track is simple enough for them all to work on and for everyone to relate to, because I think that's about as far as you can take it.
Do you think that they should redo or remix Freeze a Bird and Real Love?
I mentioned that to you personally, and I think that would be interesting only if they can clean up separate the lead vocal and piano and leave everything else in. If they can accomplish that, I think it would definitely improve on both tracks if that's something that they want to do. If they don't want to do it, they want to leave it as it is, that's fine too. I like those tracks. I understood their limitations, and I appreciate the fact that they did them. I enjoyed the songs for what they are, but if they want to do a remix, I think that would be, for me personally, that would be vastly interesting. I'd like to hear how that would come out, because look how clear John's voice is on the new recording. That's just amazing. And I think that now...
And the Real Love sounded like his voice was sped up.
Yeah, it sounded like it was sped up and, sounded like a little tinny there. I thought that they could have done a little better with that, although I think that's a good song and they did what they could. But I think now we're capable of so much more. How far do you want to? How long do you want to keep going? How much do you want to go on with this? I don't know.
And one final thought from me, which is that it's so Beatles-ish, which is I was just reading about, I think, was it the Beatles for Sale or something, where they were doing like a 13-hour session to finish it so it could be published and printed before Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And here we are. It's, the same marketing plan.
Yep.
That's been in effect since 1964, or 63 and 64. So I just think that that's very ironic as well. Well, this brings us to the end of this podcast, and Jeff and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and we hope that you find your enjoyment from these remixes and the Now and Then single. And for when we post this to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. And this podcast is uploaded to the typical platforms: Amazon, Apple, Anchor, Spotify. And again, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
It's good to be back. Thank you, everyone.